The demand for Nigeria's crude surges in the international market, and Anne will be telling us why on Business News.
You first. First Bank.
Thank you, Melinda. Fresh round of sanctions announced today by the United States on Iran have already pushed demand for Nigeria's crude higher at the international market. This is coming amid increasing demand for oil in the United States ahead of the summer, as well as in Asia. Traders are saying that European buyers are also interested in Nigerian crude oil grade due to its relatively high gasoline content, while imports from the world's 8th biggest oil producer, we're talking about Iran, fell about 57% year-on-year in the month of April. In the meantime, less than 10 Nigerian cargoes remain for loading this month and about half for the month of June. Despite continuous dismal performance, 3 of Nigeria's refineries, Warri, Port Harcourt and Kaduna, have posted lower operating deficit of 8.36 billion naira in the month of January this year. According to data released by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, the NNPC, the state oil firm, in its monthly financial and operations report for the period, says the deficit recorded the month under review represented an improvement, and that's when you compare it to the operating deficit of 17.32 billion naira, which was recorded in December last year. A breakdown of the NNPC's consolidated financial report shows that the combined revenue for the 3 refineries rose by 209.17% to 33.7 billion naira from 10.9 billion, which was recorded in the previous time. The NNPC has attributed the positive financial position to improved performance from its upstream subsidiary, the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company. Axis Bank has agreed to pay off a $200 million Eurobond, which was issued by Diamond Bank in 2014, just as to help reduce the risk of default for investors. According to a report released today by New York-based financial services company Moody's Investor Service, Axis Bank is now responsible for all Diamond Bank's liabilities, and it will repay at maturity the amount of the bond originally issued. Diamond Bank had accepted and attempted to raise between $300 million and $350 million to meet its funding requirement, but it was cut back to $200 million. Investors' demand was not as high as expected. Axis Bank completed a merger process with Diamond Bank in the month of March this year to become Nigeria's largest bank. Equities at the domestic bourse has maintained bearish performance for the 3rd consecutive day this week. More sell pressure is still pushing the NS's all-share index below the 29,000 level. Ekaite Afia has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Midweek trading at the Nigerian equities market witnessed another round of losses, with the headline index finally landing in the 28,000 level, down by almost 0.5%. 4 out of the sectors we track closed in the red today, except consumer goods, which was up 0.12%. The banking counter was the major contributor to today's losses, as the index shed 0.77%. Next is insurance, which lost 0.42%, and industrial goods down 0.16%. The banking sector's performance is evident on the list of top trades, as shares of lenders such as UBA, Access, and Sterling Bank were the most actively traded. In 3,631 deals, over 300 million shares worth 3.24 billion naira were traded. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Ekaite Afia.
Thank you, Ekaite. U.S. stock markets have ended midweek trading session slightly positive a few hours ago. Investors are still remaining very cautious about the standoff between the U.S. and China over trade agreement. But let's find out how other global markets ended for today. With those numbers, we end Business News tonight. Thank you for watching. It's back to you, Melinda. I'm Anne Nwawado.
You First. First Bank.
Many thanks, Anne. South Africans have gone to the polls to cast their ballot in the 6th democratic election since apartheid ended 25 years ago. The African National Congress, ANC, which led the fight against apartheid, has governed the country since 1994, but its support has eroded as large inequalities have remained. Our Johannesburg Bureau Chief, Pt.3, captures the mood of the people in this next report.
From the politicians to the regular voters, the polling stations in and around Johannesburg witnessed a huge turnout of voters from early in the morning.
There could be nothing more special, there could be nothing more historic than be able to express our future, vote for the future of this country and for the South Africans who are unemployed. It's a new struggle and we are fighting for the protection of freedom.
I'm voting because I would like to see the promise of 1994 come to fruition, and instead of money being wasted and looted.
The electoral process is very transparent, all-inclusive and very fair.
President Cyril Ramaphosa voted at Chawela, Soweto, where he grew up. He reiterated his party's promises.
The response of our people to voting is just amazing. The nation and our people are energized to cast their vote, and they can see that with their vote, they are heralding a new dawn.
And former President Thabo Mbeki voted in Houghton.
Everybody is in very good mood, participating very smoothly, and that's very good for all of us.
For the various electoral observer groups, despite a number of glitches which include the death of an electoral officer in the Eastern Cape last night and an elderly voter in Pretoria this morning, it's been so far so good.
The situation is calm, there is peace, there is order. Well, that's all that we can say for now.
Many young voters turned out, but many also stayed away.
We hope all that we voted for will actually come to pass once they are in power.
I just don't trust our political leaders and I don't know which party to vote for. So that's the reason why I just don't vote.
The more than 22,900 polling stations are expected to stay open and results will be trickling into the Results Operations Center in Pretoria, with the final results expected on Friday the 10th or Saturday the 11th. From Chawela, Soweto, South Africa, Pt.3, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's former president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, has been speaking on South Africa's election. Dr. Jonathan, who is leading an international observer mission to the country, says South African voters will vote for good governance in the election. He explains that the rallies have had a massive turnout, which shows that South Africans will do their best to vote in good leaders.
Witness the opening rituals, how they start the process. And of course, you've seen a very long queue already. And when we asked the officials, they said that they have all their materials and that they are going to open the time that's supposed to open. So far, I think it's going on well.
Okay. You monitored the rallies and the grand finale of the rallies, and you seem quite impressed.
Yes, we monitored only, there are quite a number of political parties, but we monitored the final rally of the ANC, the ruling party. We also monitored that of the DA, the #1 opposition party. And of course, the economic freedom fighters. We also observed their rallies, and we were impressed by the rallies. Raising key issues for the voters. I would believe that the voters will do their best to vote the people they believe in. They believe that they can give them good governance.
Let's get a wrap of the international news. Juliana Olainka is standing by with Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom in London. Iran has threatened to increase its uranium enrichment in 60 days if world powers fail to do more to protect the country from US sanctions. Tehran says it started scaling back some of its commitments under the 2015 nuclear deal, a year after Washington pulled out of the pact. President Hassan Rouhani has written to the leaders of the UK, France, Germany, China and Russia, warning of a firm response if the move is referred to the UN Security Council. But he also said the country is ready to renew negotiations on the nuclear programme and made it clear that Tehran is not leaving the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action.
Aujourd'hui, rien ne serait pire.
Today, nothing would be worse than Iran leaving this agreement, and we Europeans, since the European Union was a stakeholder in this agreement, we, France, absolutely wish to be able to keep this agreement alive.
We expect our colleagues, first of all, the European ones who volunteered to find a solution to the problem created by the Americans, to fulfill their obligations.
I urge Iran not to take further escalatory steps and to stand by its commitments. Sanctions were lifted in exchange for restrictions on Iran's nuclear program. Should Iran cease to observe its nuclear commitments, there would, of course, be consequences.
We share the same perception of the Iranian threat, and we are together trying to find new ways to work closely to combat that threat.
A suicide bomber has killed at least 10 people in Pakistan. A security checkpoint outside Lahore's Data Darbar, one of the largest shrines in South Asia, was targeted. More than 20 others were also injured in the attack, many of them critically. In the Afghan capital, Kabul, a car bomb was used to raid the compound of the aid group Counterpart International. Security forces exchanged gunfire with the attackers as they entered a building, injuring more than a dozen people. The Interior Ministry says 80 employees were rescued. 2 students have been arrested following a school shooting in the States. 1 classmate was killed and 7 others were injured when the suspects, each armed with a handgun, opened fire in 2 separate classrooms in Colorado. It comes less than a month after the 20th anniversary of the Columbine High School massacre, which happened just 5 miles away.
When the shooters came in shooting, and she said that 2 of her classmates took the shooters down and she was able to escape.
School admin called us saying they could hear shots being fired. Over the next few minutes, quite a few shots were fired, and police officers, sheriff's officers were on scene almost immediately. We have a substation just about a block away. We had school resource officers and officers from the substation and on patrol enter the school almost immediately. 2 suspects were taken into custody.
A family of 5 are among the victims of a plane crash in northern Mexico. 13 people were on board when the aircraft came down in a remote mountain region. The passengers were reportedly returning home after watching a Mexican boxer competing in Las Vegas. It's thought the pilot may have been trying to avoid a storm. A Christian woman who spent 8 years on death row in Pakistan after being convicted of blasphemy has arrived in Canada, where her 2 daughters have reportedly been granted asylum. Asia Bibi was accused of insulting the Prophet Muhammad in a row with her neighbours. Her case divided the country, but she's always maintained her innocence. She was acquitted in October and has been in protective custody since. And finally, the world's been waiting, and here he is, the newest British royal. 2 days after he was born, Prince Harry and his wife Meghan have introduced their son, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex say they're now looking forward to showing him to the rest of the family.
It's magic. It's pretty amazing, and I mean, I have the 2 best guys in the world, so I'm really happy.
Tell us a little bit about your son. What's he like? Is he sleeping well, good baby?
Yes, he has the sweetest temperament. He's really calm and
he gets that from.
yeah, and he's just been the dream, so it's been a special couple days.
Who does he take after? Does he look like anyone?
We're still trying to figure that out.
Everyone says that babies change so much over 2 weeks. We're basically sort of monitoring how the changing process happens over this next month, really. But his looks are changing every single day. Yes. So who knows? We're just so thrilled to have our own little bundle of joy and be able to spend some precious times with him as he slowly starts to grow up.
And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Many thanks, Juliana. Still ahead on the news at 10, Chelsea heads to the Court of Arbitration for Sports after FIFA upheld a 2-window transfer ban against the London club. That's all sports news. Join us again.